Hi, I'm Marie with Aunt Ree's Quilt Shop, and today we're going to talk about using rotary cutters. I have been quilting for 25 years or so. There are a lot of things that I have seen that have caused injuries, have very high potential for causing injuries. And so I just kind of want to quickly go over a few things that I've seen happen over the last 25 years. Some are more common than others, but just some warnings, some basic best practices and that kind of thing. So this is going to be a great video to show if you've got a young person that wants to start quilting. I personally would wait till they were 8, 9, 10 years old before I let them use a rotary cutter, just because they don't always have the skill set to do it properly and safely. Um, every kid is different. I totally understand that. So it is totally up to you when you choose to let them do it. But this is a great video for adults because everything I'm going to tell you and talk about today, I have seen adults do. So, just a real quick recap of all of the safety things that we need to remember. First of all, you want a rotary cutter that is going to fit well in your hand. Everybody is different. You have to use what's comfortable for you. If it's not comfortable, then it's awkward and it's more likely to cause an injury. This is one that I have because I left mine at home for a show and this was all that was available. So I did use it. I don't care for this. I know a lot of people use these. They do tend to be on the cheaper side. I get it. And some people, they're just more comfortable with these. There's a ton of different brands. I would not buy a super cheap one. This is an Olfa, but there's nothing wrong with it. It just does not fit well in my hand. Now, some advantages are that it does have this quick release. You're not trying to unscrew anything like on this one to replace your blades, that kind of thing. The guard goes up and down, but you need to make sure that you get in the habit of putting it back every time that you go to set your blade down for any reason. This one here is what I prefer. There are a ton of different styles, a ton of different options. Find one that fits well in your hand. This one here works well for my hands. I am very particular. I do have arthritis in my hands. I've had it for years. This one just works well. I feel safer. I feel like I have more control, all of the fun stuff. So, and this is the little red button here is how it locks. Now, one of the most important things you need to remember about your blades and be good about is changing your blades. They do get dull. They do not last forever. Are they super cheap? No. So you go to replace your needle on your sewing machine and you're talking a 50-cent needle, maybe, if that. The blades do cost several dollars. It's cheaper than an emergency room visit. It's cheaper than having to have surgery to repair your finger. So, or to replace your mat or whatever else gets damaged because you refuse to change your blade. No, they're not cheap. Factor them in. One blade will last you sometimes 2 or 3 projects. It just depends on what you're doing, how big of a project, all that kind of stuff. As soon as it stops cutting all of the fabric's layers or starts skipping threads or anything like that, change your blade. Don't go over it multiple times. At that point, you need to change your blade. Don't press down on it. If you go to press down on this, one, you're damaging your mat because you're putting more force into your mat and it's going to cut into it. This mat here is a Quilter Select mat, but if your blade is sharp, it's just going to skim the top. It's not going to push down into your mat. Okay? Also, if I'm pushing down and I'm going forward, I've got it closed. So, and I'm moving forward, I have less control because I've got all my body weight behind it. So, if something happens and I need to react and pull back, it's going to take me longer to pull back. If I've got a good sharp blade and I'm just barely having to push down, then I'm going to have a faster reaction time if something goes off course. If my ruler slips, if occasionally my blade, if I'm not paying attention, will jump on off the edge of the ruler, will jump up. It'll nick the ruler, but it also goes after my fingers, okay? So a sharp blade will keep you from having to press down. If you're having to press down, you need a new blade. So those are some of the things. Also, buy good blades. But I buy Olfa. I've almost always, that's pretty much what I've exclusively used. I've bought some other ones before. I don't care for them as much. This one is Quilt Cutter brand. I prefer Olfa. Honestly, I get them on Amazon. Sometimes I can get them cheaper on Amazon than I do wholesale. So that's an option, but make sure you're buying from a reputable place on Amazon. So, and the bigger the pack you buy, the cheaper they are per blade. So if I buy one, it might cost me $10 or $7 or $8. If I buy 10, it might cost me $50, which is only $5 a blade. So make sure you're buying quality blades. We know how we all are about our fabric scissors. If we used paper scissors, cheap paper scissors trying to cut fabric, they'll work okay for a little while and they're going to dull very quickly. It's the same thing with cheap blades. Please do not go to the hardware store and buy carpet cutting blades. Yes, they will fit. Yes, they are the same size. And yes, they will work for a very short period of time. They dull very quickly. They're not made for cutting fabric. They're made for cutting carpet and other supplies or other things like that. Okay, flooring, carpet, whatnot. Buy good blades. It is worth the extra few dollars to buy good blades. They're going to last longer and they're going to keep you safer. Like I said before, don't bear down on it. The other problem with bearing down is it can cause you're putting more pressure on your joints, your shoulder. A lot of people who have been cutting for years and years and years start to have shoulder problems. Part of it is because they're bearing down. I'm putting so much more strain on my shoulder that I shouldn't be. And if I'm doing it properly and keeping my blade fresh, then I'm not going to have that problem. So the other issue with rotary cutters and blades, when someone does cut their finger, if the blade is not sharp and fairly new, it tears more than it cuts. Think about cutting a steak. If you've got a good sharp knife, it's just going to slice right through just like butter, right? If your blade's not sharp, if your knife is not kept sharp, then you're doing this and you're sawing at it and it's not a nice sharp cut. You're tearing the meat. Same thing's going to happen if you do something, God forbid, something happens, and I've done it. I've gotten the end of my finger before. It happens. If you've got a sharp blade, you're going to get a nice sharp cut. Now, why is that important? So I've got a piece of paper here. And here, y'all can look at my Mickey Mouse paper. Here, I tore it. So this is what a dull blade is going to do. It's going to essentially tear the skin and the muscle and whatever else is underneath it. Now look how hard this is to get it back together exactly right. You're probably never going to. So, just think, the doctor has to stitch this up, okay? So even if I'm trying to put a piece of tape on here and get it all lined up just perfectly, it's going to be noticeable. I'm going to have a scar. And not that you won't have a scar with a sharp blade, but it's going to be less. It's easier for them to put it back together, okay? Whereas if the blade was sharp, see, they've got a nice clean edge to put this back together and stitch it up. So this is going to be much easier for them to repair In the emergency room, the doctor's office, whatnot. I know a lady who cut off the pad of her finger, and they weren't sure that it was gonna take. They attached it, they sewed it back on, thankfully it did. They weren't sure it was gonna accept that skin back. There was so much damage underneath. A clean cut is so much easier for them to repair. So I nicked, like I said, nicked the end of my finger one time. I was able to just put it back. It didn't come completely off. It was just, I cut it. I just pushed it back on there. I wrapped it up. I doctored it. I didn't even have to go to the doctor or emergency room or anything. And again, had it been further up, had it been, a different situation, I would have. But I was able to just kind of put it back in place, wrap it up, and I was good to go. So, all that to say, change your blades. Please change your blades. $3 or $4 blade, $5 blade is cheaper than thousands of dollars to have something repaired. Okay? And it's not foolproof. Accidents still happen, but you have less likelihood of something happening if you have a good blade in your cutter. Now, when you go to change your blades, this is not really a safety thing, but I take my pieces apart and I set them in order. So this one, the nut, it matters which way. I set everything down in order of how it's going to go back together. Okay. Everything's facing the right direction. Everything's good to go. Now it's good and tight. When you do pull the old blade out, I recommend keeping your blade containers and just writing old blades on here. So my old one's going to go in here. That way I don't throw it in the trash and somebody goes to take out the trash and cuts their hand. Happened to me back when I was working at a daycare. Somebody opened the little Kool-Aid container when you had to use a can opener to open the lid and threw the lid away. And when I went to take the trash out that night, it cut me. And I probably should have gone in for stitches, but I didn't. So this keeps anybody from getting hurt when they go to take out the trash or anything like that. And some people, I've heard some people have sharps containers. They put their old blades or they put their needles and things like that in. That's an option. You can get them pretty cheap on Amazon, I think. But put them somewhere safe and don't just set them down. If I just set this on the table and cover it up with fabric and I go to pick up the fabric, there's a good possibility I'm going to catch that blade and cut my hand. So again, this is contained. It is safe. My old blades and my new blades. So by the time this one is full, this one should be empty. Then I'm just going to take my marker and write old blades here. This becomes my old blade container, and then I've got a replacement for the new blades. So I keep both of these in my zipper pouch all the time. So now every time I go to change my blade, they're right here together. And so wherever you keep them together. Always lock your blades. Always keep your safety guard up. Please don't set it down like this and leave it. You set this down, something gets set on top of it, you go to pick it up or somebody else does, and that blade is open and it's going to get somebody. Eventually, it will get somebody. Always, always, always lock your blades. This is another reason I don't prefer these. This just doesn't do it for me. These, the little red button actually locks it. Is it foolproof? No. Is it less likely that I'm going to pick this up and hurt myself? Yes. Also, we have a 2-year-old granddaughter. She picks this up. Hopefully, I'm going to catch her before she gets to the button or gets messing with it too much. I do keep my door locked to the sewing room when she's here, but inevitably, things happen. Eventually, she's going to be allowed in here. This is just one more deterrent. And for me, my kids were small when I started quilting. I prefer to keep it locked all the time. This one, technically, you can lock it open and leave it. Please don't do that. because you got an exposed blade. That's the same as leaving this one down. Oops, that was the wrong side. That's the same as leaving this guard down. We don't want to leave either one like this, okay? We always want to keep our blades covered. Just make it a habit. Every time I go to set this down, I automatically, my finger hits the lock and I lock it back. One more step, not only, to deter somebody, a small child or whatever, from getting a hold of it and getting hurt, are these little zipper cases. Your cutter slides in here. Again, is this foolproof? Absolutely not. These are also great for travel. And if I'm going to be or to retreat or a class, if I throw my rotary cutter in there and for some reason that button gets pushed and it unlocks, I'm more likely to get hurt digging through my bag. I could hit it. It could pop that blade out. I just don't want to do that. If I'm digging through my bag and my cutter's in here, I'm not going to hurt myself. If my granddaughter happens to get a hold of this, yes, she can open this. I'm positive that she can, okay? But it gives me more time to find her messing with it, because she would have to open this, get this out, and unlock it. So it is still locked. It is locked in its case, probably in a bag. So if you've got small children around, even if you don't, these are all just really good safety practices to have. And hopefully you are going to be able to continue quilting and not get injured in the process. So I hope this was a great refresher for you. I've got a lot more video content coming. We're trying to build up and get all this channel, more and more videos on it. I've got a lot of things that I really wanted to get on here and talk to you about, but this is one of the things that I get on my soapbox occasionally, and everybody knows I might go off on a tangent about the safety of rotary cutters. So as long as you're using them safe and keeping good blades in them and being careful, paying attention to what you're doing and keeping them out of small hands, then we can prevent a whole lot of hospital visits and injuries in the long run. I hope this was helpful for you. If you don't mind hitting the like and subscribe and helping this channel grow and helping us reach more people. And I hope that y'all have a great week, and I will see you next time. Bye.